Well, hey there, gorgeous, and welcome. Another week, another lockdown. If you are in Canada, if you are in Ontario, and if you're in Muskoka, we have now moved back to gray. Yay! Yay to gray. Nobody ever has said that. So, this week I wanted to bring you something special, something intriguing, something that will expand your mind and think beyond the current situation we're all in. Now, I have a special guest for you. You're gonna love her. I love her. Her energy is off the hook. She's amazing. Her name is Jennifer Arthurton, and she's really focused on supporting women who are middle-aged. But this episode is for any woman because it's really encouraging us to all think beyond midlife, and we're all moving beyond midlife at some point. So, what's your vision beyond that? That's what this episode is all about, and she just lands so much like super hot content for us. I know you're gonna love it. I can't wait for you to meet her. Without further ado, this is episode 61 of the Worthy Woman Collective podcast. Well, hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Worthy Woman Collective podcast. I'm your host, Tara Kindon, and today I have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful soul to bring to you to share her wisdom and magic. I'm just going to share with you who this lovely woman is. This is Jennifer Arthurton. She is the creator and founder of Old Chicks No Shit. Yes, that's right. A community and podcast designed to inspire and support midlife women in chasing their dreams, creating their kick-ass next chapter. Jennifer is an empowerment coach, podcast host, writer, and speaker, and having made her own midlife course corrections, she is so passionate about advocating of the inherent power and knowledge that women possess at a time when they often feel overlooked and doubt themselves the most. Like, welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so pumped that you are going to be sharing your wisdom with the listeners today, because we have so many gorgeous women from all different ages who do listen to this podcast. And we did talk a little bit before. I was like, okay, so what constitutes an old chick who might know some shit? How old does she need to be? So I'll let you tell us how old, in loose terms, that she might be.
Yeah. So, I mean, technically my audience is anywhere from 40 to 60. And generally they tend to be women who are and age is not really the defining thing. It tends to be women who are reaching a point in their lives where their lives are shifting, like their kids could be leaving home, maybe their relationships are changing, their careers aren't as satisfying anymore, and they're kind of feeling a bit like, what do I do next? Like they're asking themselves the question, what's next? And what do I want to do for the second half of my life? So that's who the Old Chicks No Shit audience is. And Old Chicks No Shit is really just about reminding us as women that the knowledge and the wisdom and the experience that we have that is so, so valuable that we tend to discount.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I was saying, well, I'm actually in your target demographic now because I am turning 45 this year, and you gave me the most beautiful compliment, which felt so good, but it was awesome. It's like going to the liquor store and getting ID'd.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
You don't look a day over 35.
So good. You can come on the podcast anytime as long as you say nice things to me. No, so I also want to share, maybe you'll share with the audience your human design type and your profile, because people are so obsessed with human design who are listening to this podcast, and it's nice for them to kind of get the energy of who you are. So who are you?
Yes. I am also obsessed with human design, just have become recently obsessed with human design. So I am a manifesting generator, 6'2" with an emotional authority.
And so she is like the unicorn. I love to call the manifesting generators the unicorns, because they have this, it's such a capacity for so many projects, and you literally are here to chase all of them. Whatever turns you on doesn't mean you put them all into motion, but you are meant to chase what turns you on. And I think you're doing that.
Yeah, and the beautiful part about that is I have really discovered that in my own second chapter, and how beautifully authentic and aligned it feels with who I am. So yeah,
And
so glad I came
like
across
the
it.
freedom to say, you know what, I've been told I'm trying to do too many things at once, or maybe you've heard like, oh, just pick one thing, but you're not here to pick one thing. Part of what you're here to do is explore and experiment. And with that 6-2, it's like you have specifically 3 phases of your life. It's that tri-phase, and you are really embodying that sort of final phase, which is becoming that role model.
Mm.
Role model. Just slipped into my Southern accent there for a second. But it's like really stepping into that role and being able to lead from the front. And I think that's absolutely what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just feels really, really right. Yeah.
And okay, you also have the 2. So do you find yourself wanting to recluse and retreat? Go hide
Absolutely.
out?
Absolutely. And I've actually come to really like embody and embrace that part of me. Before, I was in a huge ton of denial about it, because I worked in like sales and marketing, and it's like go, 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 go all the time. And I never honored that part of me. And that actually, interestingly enough, like led to burnout, which is how this whole old chicks know shit mission got started. Because at the age of 50, I found myself like completely fried. And since then, I have really come to honor that by taking time away by myself. Like, I love my little mini vacations, like just me, like they are my most like cherished time. And now I really, really honor it and embody it. And again, I need that. Like, I need the recharge.
Well, and remember, like part of your work in teaching the women that you teach is like you're also teaching them how to restore and rest themselves, right?
If it's the number one thing that I hear from my clients and the women in my community is like, I want to do this thing. Like, I've had this dream forever and I want to do this thing, but I literally just don't have the energy.
Mm,
Because as women, we are so conditioned to give, 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 and do for everybody around us. And we leave nothing for ourselves.
yes.
Right. And that's like, that is
Oh, we could
like
go
my
so
mess.
deep here, but I don't want to
So
get
deep.
sideways.
Yeah. But like, that's the number one thing that I talk about with my clients is like, how are you carving out time for you? Like, where are you recharging? Where are you refilling your cup? Right. And I know you talk about this a lot too.
Well, we call it the queendom. So the first thing we
Yeah.
do is create a queendom space within your home, within yourself, that you can retreat to, regardless of whether you're a 2 and you like to retreat naturally. Like 7/8 of the population has an open will center. Well, the will center is exactly where we can burn ourselves out, overcommit, extend for everyone else, give, 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 give when you've got nothing else to give.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you're exhausted, you're wiped out, and you're not excited about anything.
Exactly.
And you're no good to anyone at that point. So tell us, we're all about worth, and I would love to hear from you when you kind of had this aha moment, like, I am so undervaluing myself, my essence. I'm not doing, the work I'm meant to do, or being in the relationships I'm meant to do. Like, when did you really have a pivotal moment where you realize like something has got to give here?
So that is such an interesting question. And I wish I could say to you that,
It's one moment.
one day I woke up and I was like, this is the thing, and I know I should change. But the way that pivotal moment came for me was, you know how they say, first life gives you a like a poke, and then it gives you a shove. And then if you're not listening, you get the brick in the head. Well, I got probably about 3 bricks in the head that literally
It's like the
stopped me.
cosmic 2x4.
Yeah, and it literally was like a 2x4 to the face, right? Where literally my life was just like, yeah, no, sister, we ain't doing it this way anymore. We're shutting this whole thing down. So at the age of 50, I found myself divorced, empty nested. So my daughter went away to university, forced out of my career, and bedridden with a stress-related illness. So literally every identity that I thought I had in the world was stripped away from me. So I was like no longer an active mom. I was no longer a wife. I was no longer a corporate executive. And, like I was a gym rat, very athletic. I couldn't even get out of bed to go grocery shopping most days. And so you know, it took me, and I wish I could say that again, it was like a magic switch flipped. And then I jumped up and was like, oh, okay. No, there was like some ugly months of crying and wailing and trying to hang on to the shreds of my old life before I finally realized that the only option that the universe had given me at that particular time was surrender. And that there was a reason why I needed to surrender it all.
And it's interesting. And as a 6'2", like as a 6 profile, this is when you were up on the roof. Yeah. We call it going up on the roof because it's like you basically extract yourself or are extracted to go and do the work. So the healing work, the recovery work, the figuring out what the next phase is going to look like, so you can emerge feeling like you do now. And
well, yeah. And that's like, I mean, that's such a beautiful way that you put it, because that literally was what happened. Like in a very short space of time, I was literally extracted from my life. Like it was like every identity that I thought of who I was in the world was no longer it. And, you know, it was only, you know, that I'm lying in bed, you know, unable to get out of bed going, okay, well, what do I even want to do in my next chapter? Like I had no idea. And then I'd be like, well, who am I? If I'm not a wife, if I'm not a mom, if I don't have X title and work for X company, who am I? Right. And I had to go through a process of really getting to know me. And then through that process, it was, you know, Old Chicks No Shit was born because, you know, there I was at the age of 50 thinking, I have to basically start my life over now. And first of all, am I too old? Like people don't start over at 50. People are like riding off into the retirement sunset at 50. They're not starting over. So I started questioning my value. I was like, you know, and then I'm like, well, do I have what it takes? You know, am I smart enough? Is this even possible? And I started looking around for inspiration for what was possible for my life starting over at the age of 50. And quite frankly, I didn't see much that was very inspiring. Right. And then like, one of my pet peeves has become, you know, when you look around and you see how media portrays older women, it's all about bladder leakage protection, meal replacement shakes, anti-aging cream, and sitting around waiting for your grandkids to arrive. And I'm like, hell no. That is not the life that I am creating my next chapter. That is not it.
Because I don't watch any TV, like advertising type. I don't even know where to YouTube advertising is what I get. And it's like the most random stuff anyways, but like that would make
like, how depressing is that?
Awful.
Right. And then, you know, and then I'm looking around and I'm thinking like, look at all these like, you know, vibrant, kick-ass 50-year-old women out there who are doing things. And like, that's when I started digging. I'm like, they are out there. They do exist. It's just that we don't see that as part of the mainstream narrative on what it means to be an older woman. Mm-hmm. Right. So, you know, that's when I was like, okay, Old Chicks No Shit. Like I got a ton of wisdom and experience, you know, at that point I'd be like, okay, I kind of know who I am now, still figuring that out. Right. But
forever process,
process. Right. And I was like, I can do something amazing. And then that's why I started the podcast, sharing, you know, stories of reinvention and, you know, women in their, you know, 40s, 50s and 60s who are doing like just crazy, incredible things in the world. Right. And I'm like, this is what more women need to see. So let me create this. This is what I needed to see. So let me create this. And then, you know, I just had women sharing their stories with me about, you know, their lives changing and like having no vision for what their next chapter would be, feeling completely stuck. And, you know, that led to, you know, coaching clients and things like that. And like, I found my passion. Like I could talk about this stuff like all day, all night. Right. Yeah. It's
just
just
in your voice, the enthusiasm. And of course, this is like, you know, part of being a manifesting generator is like, you're on fast forward all the time. Right. So it's like, you skip steps, you've got 100 screens open on your computer and you're like, I know exactly where everything is at all times. And I'm still answering the phone call and my hair is on fire.
Yeah. I wish it was that. I wish it was all that. It's actually been a bit of a process for me to learn to work with all of the ideas and all of the things, because otherwise I'm just like, you know, a rabid monkey going from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, I really haven't got anything done, but I touched a million things today.
But have you noticed, because this is one thing I've noticed, and maybe it's just kind of happened in the last little while, and this is what we were preparing for last year, but that it's like there's an accumulation of all of the things you've experienced up to this point that are now like, wow, I learned that so I could put this here. I learned that so I could put this here. I just feel like there was this, I don't know, it's like we got squeezed so hard last year that all of a sudden it was like, okay, all the things you were experiencing, all of the painful moments have brought you to this place. Now, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah. And I feel like that happened for me, like even long before last year, but last year was kind of a culmination. Like it was almost like, okay, this is it. You now need to emerge from this time in that place. Like you know, like all this crap that you've been dragging with you and all this stuff, right? You're leaving it right here, sister, at the end of this period. And now you're launching into the next phase. And like, I really feel that within myself as having just really solidified who I am, you know, and human design has been such a big part of that, like giving me so much permission.
And you listen, there's so much we need to have a date. But I want to know from you, what's the number one piece of advice you give to a woman who's coming to you and they're like lost? They are so lost that they have forgotten their name. What's the number one thing you or the number one piece or pieces you may give them that help them reframe?
The first thing I always say, that the number one thing is to stop what you are doing. So as women, we are so busy doing for other people and putting ourselves last on our list that, and I was very guilty of this too, right? I had become so disconnected from myself that I didn't know who I was or what I wanted. And so that's why if you don't know who you are, you can't possibly know what you want. And that's why there's this feeling of like staring into this giant void that's like your next chapter, and you're like staring into this big hole and there's nothing in there. Right.
Right.
And this is like, women describe this to me all the time. It's just like, I know things are changing, but like, where do I go with this? Right. And the first thing I tell everybody is turn inward. Like you have to go inside. The answers to everything you need are already inside you.
Yes.
You have to learn how to connect in with those answers. Right. So to take small steps to like spend some time with yourself. Like if you meditate, or if you've been interested in meditation, now's the time. Get out your journal. Ask yourself, like, what do I want? Like even in moments in during your day, like what do I need right now? Right? Like just literally stop and go inwards, because again, you can't figure out what you want if you don't know who you are. And as a society, I say that most of us are running around completely disconnected from who we truly are as people.
That is the programming. That is the programming.
Yeah.
And I think that is why there is such a move in feminine leadership and women who have been like, okay, this is no longer working. It's time to do a reframe, and the understanding of figuring out how to balance being in your masculine and feminine energies in the way that like makes sense, which I don't think a lot of people talk about this in a way that makes a lot of logical sense. And so when you say like, you know, women are running around taking care of everybody and knowing, you know, what kid needs this vitamin, what partner needs this, where this goes, where that goes, what day this happens. And the thing with that is that when we are in control of everything, we're in control of nothing. Because we don't know. This is where I think the biggest challenge is because we've had to go make shit happen, go get things done. We forgot how to receive the help. We forgot how to like say, I am an excellent receiver. And even though you are going to screw this dishwasher up, I'm okay with whatever you do.
Yeah. Like we are so good at giving and so bad at receiving.
And that's masculine. Giving is masculine.
Exactly. We are so deep in our masculine that we're missing like the part that makes us so powerful. But we are that way because we've been conditioned to be that way. Like we need to be like little miniature men, or we thought we had to be like little miniature men because all of the things that people deemed as female or feminine qualities were weak. But the truth is they're weak for men, but they're
sexualized.
It's
like feminine energy is sexualized. Like, so for me, like when I named the candles, my candle line, Witch in Wicks, that either puts a really positive spin in someone's mind or a really negative spin in somebody's mind because they're like, oh yeah, she's a witch.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's so true.
right. And the thing is with the process for me, this is about like a reminder of, like, you talk about the wisdom, and it's like the wisdom we have within us around like all of this generational lineage of an inner knowingness that we're so disconnected from because we're so
Yeah,
busy trying to be something we're not,
exactly.
instead of being
Exactly.
like, yes, I birthed a child and I have no idea how that really happened, but I trusted it was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And like, this is part of my mission, is because as, as well, I mean, as witches, people were burned at the stake because
Right?
that's how powerful their knowledges were. Right. And then you have this group of women who are in their 40s and 50s that have all of this like incredible knowledge and experience and wisdom. And then society parks us in a corner over here and
Like,
says
you're
like,
too dangerous. I just want you to know that's
right.
why. You're too
Well,
dangerous.
exactly. Right. And when women in midlife step into their power, it is so ridiculously incredible, right? The things that they can accomplish. And as midlife women, like, we stepping into our power and chasing our dreams, and we are the way showers, we are the leaders, we are the teachers of the generations that are coming behind us. Like, I know my daughter looks at what it means to be 50 completely differently than she did, before I started on this mission. And she tells me this all the time, which is so amazing. Like, I love it. She's like, Mom, I'm so proud of you.
Oh, that's like confirmation right there. I mean, that's
Yeah.
all you need to hear to not, like, this is, they always say, send the women to war, because the women will fight for what is right, not fight
Yeah.
for the sake of fighting. They'll fight for
Yeah.
the children, they'll fight for the community, they'll do the work necessary to rebuild what needs to be rebuilt. You know, yeah. I just think we could talk so much about this.
Oh my God. And like, in nature, killer whales are the only other mammal to go through menopause, like, other than humans, the only other mammal. And what happens in nature is when a killer whale is no longer able to reproduce, she becomes the leader of the pod. So she directs them to safety. She directs them to food. She's a protector. Right. So nature got it right. It's, we're the ones that screwed it up. And there are so many other places, like in, non-Western parts of the world, like tribes and stuff. Whereas when women, stop reproducing, they join the village elders, like the wisdom keepers.
Of course. Okay,
But
so
in North America, we've got it all
yeah, we
backwards.
just put them out to pasture. But
Yeah.
okay, so explain that. Tell me your take on this. So when you think about that, that protect, like the killer whale as the protecting energy,
Mhm.
do you feel that that is a feminine energy or a masculine energy?
It's actually, I think it's a feminine energy because it's protection, but it's also nurturing.
So I'm curious. Like, are these two different things? Like, this is, I'm playing with this in my head because I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
it said that, you know, and it makes total sense to me when I heard it this way, was that that mama energy, that mama instinct of the mama bear. Like, you try to get in the middle of a mama bear and her
Exactly.
cub and she will rip your face off. But
Exactly.
like, that to me is very masculine. That's not nurturing.
But I think that's the beautiful part of feminine energy to me, is that it can flow to wherever it needs to flow to do the job that it needs to do.
Mm.
Right. So when your child's life is threatened,
Oh yeah, you're like,
like, you can turn, like, I mean, and there's so many archetypes of women warriors,
yes.
right? Like, and that's kind of where it is. So you can like rip somebody's face off and then go feed somebody in the next minute, right?
Oh my God. Okay, so
That's the power of
here's
it.
what I've been deep studying into, and I know you'll appreciate this because you know how obsessed I am with learning different things. So I have been deep diving into the Venus star point, which is like this whole other world of astrology, which talks about being either a morning star or an evening star, and that the morning star was the warrior energy. And if you're an evening star, it's like the lover energy. So it's this play between, and this is that feminine and masculine, but it's even deeper than that, because it's like the warrior and the lover, like, she's either fierce or she's receptive, right? So she's giving or she's receiving. And this is all So I'm deep studying into this because I'm like, oh, this is so necessary to be able to share some of this wisdom as to like how you can flow better throughout your day, knowing more about how you express your energy.
Well, I mean, and I know for me, like having come out of the corporate world where I was heavily indoctrinated into my masculine, like heavily, because that's what that's what I had to do, right? Like that's a 25-year career. Oh my God, no, a 30-year career of being a little man, right? And like, that's what got me to the point like of burnout, because I was doing what I thought I had to do to be successful, as opposed to what was coming from me innately that is now driving my success, right?
You were modeled that though,
Exactly.
right?
I was programmed.
Yeah.
And I have literally called like the last years of my life, like the last 5 years of my life, is the deprogramming phase, and like learning to lean into, you know, more of the feminine, and like being able to have pleasure and flow and still be, you know, create and, you know, build a business, and like how to flow in between those two things. I mean, God, it's still a learning process for me. It's
Well, and I mean, for you, you have the power of that generator life force built in workforce energy when you're doing something that you're lit up in, but you also have this creative internal flow that, if you've ever noticed this, when an idea is flowing through, like, you need to get it out of you in the moment. And if anyone gets in your way while that's happening, it's like the hose gets kinked, and you either get really frustrated or really angry if somebody gets in the middle of it, because that's just like how you need to get it up. You need to get it out in the moment.
For sure. I mean, that's why if you look at my journal, I have one of these, I don't know if you remember them, the old school pens that have like the clicker with 4 different colors on it.
Yes.
So I use that as my journal pen, because like in the middle of a journal or meditation session, like stuff will start flowing through, and I write it down in a different color so that it stands out. But I can't like go, okay, I'm just going to wait till I'm finished doing what I'm doing. It has to come out at that particular moment.
Or you forget. It's like,
or else it's gone.
Right. And they talk about that. Elizabeth Gilbert talked about that in Big Magic. And she said, you know, the idea goes to somebody else. And I'm like, hell no, not this one. Like, I got to get it out.
That's mine. That's mine. Nobody's getting this one.
And if it's not for me, I want to gift it to the right person. That's how I think about it. Okay. So enough about, okay. What else do I want to know from you that I feel like this has been so juicy and so great? Is there anything else that you know, because we've covered like such an expanse, but I mean, what do you just feel like any woman who's listening right now, like, what does she need to know regardless of age, you know?
One of the things that I teach a lot of my clients, or we talk about a lot, is the ability to be able to dream, right? To create a vision. And I think, you know, as kids, we all naturally have that ability. And then, you know, we get told, oh, come back to real life, or that's not productive.
Oh, yes.
And so we don't allow ourselves, like, we're too busy adulting to allow ourselves the time and pleasure to dream about what's important to us, like to dream about crazy ideals, to just like, you know, just spend time visioning. Right. And because if you think about it,
you have the 41. Do you have the gate 41?
I'm not sure. Probably. If that means visionary, yes.
it's imagination.
Yeah. Well, and because here's the other part, right? Most of us, if you think about it, when you're a little girl and you start dreaming about your life, you dream about, you know, going to school, you dream about motherhood, you might dream about your job, like
either of those things.
Okay, or whatever, right? Like whatever your life is. But not many of us have ever dreamt about our second chapter. It's like life stops after we have our kids.
Ooh.
And we've never actually created that vision. It's like as soon as our kids are done, it's like that's where our vision ends. That's where it ended.
OMG.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you think about it in that context, you're like, well, no wonder women reach this point, and then they're like, I'm just staring over the edge of into this big abyss, because we've never, ever, ever allowed ourselves to dream. And in the process of dreaming and like creating the vision, that's where we get the clues that are going to lead us down the path that we need to go down. Like every answer we have is inside us. So creating space for ourselves to connect back in with who we are, creating space for ourselves to like outlandishly dream, like go as big and ridiculous as you want. Or maybe there's a seed of an idea you had as a kid, right? But you never actually give yourself the chance to think about it because you're like, oh, that's impossible, right? Like maybe I wanted to be a fairy princess. Well, spend some time dreaming about fairy princess. Maybe one day you get a part-time job at Disney and you're actually a fairy princess. Like, do you
Yes.
know what I'm saying? There's so much possibilities,
Yes.
but we don't allow ourselves to take the time to connect in and to like really spend the time creating a vision for what's important to us. Like a vision aligned with our values, a vision aligned with who we are, a vision aligned with our dreams, right? Like a vision aligned with the legacy that we want to leave.
But don't you find, like, I know this with a lot of my own clients, is that people struggle to even remember what is fun, to
Yeah,
remember what is
100%.
pleasurable. And that's why I feel like really getting to know Venus energy is such a big one,
Yeah,
because we don't even know what makes us, like, what turns us on, and not just like
100%.
sexual turn on, but like legitimate, what makes you
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. And that's so true. And again, I hear that all the time. And, you know, it's hard to go from 0 to 100, like in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent of take the tiniest step that you can take in the direction you want to go. So if you've never spent any time with yourself, carve out 5 minutes. And like you said, in the, what do you call it? The queendom,
Queendom.
right? Like, yeah, carve 5 minutes out of your life and
Yes.
start there. Right. And then let it grow from there. Because if you start at the seed, it will grow. But if you never ever plant the seed, it can never grow. So you just take
You
the
are
tiniest
speaking my
possible
language.
steps.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so tell us this. Where can we find you? Like, where can women go? And I'll put all of this in the show notes too, guys. So if you don't need to take notes, but maybe tell us your website. I know you also have a group.
Yeah. So you can find me on all the social media platforms. So Instagram and Facebook are kind of where I hang out most. So it's Old Chicks No Shit. So it's KNOW shit.com. And it's Old Chicks No Shit on Instagram. And then through my website, you can find, I run a program called the Empowerment Intensive, which is reminding women of how powerful you are. So it's kind of like a deprogramming the culturalization of aging women. So it's reminding women about how powerful you are to be able to create whatever it is that you want to create for your next chapter. And it's a lot of mindset. It's a lot of like working with the energy of attraction, you know, our thoughts, and all the limiting beliefs, like all the stories and limiting beliefs that we tell ourselves about what's possible for us, like getting it underneath that. So that's the group training program. And then I also do one-on-one coaching as well too. And this year I'm going to be starting a mastermind for women who are in the process of creation, you know, like in their 40s and 50s and want support.
So beautiful.
So, yeah.
So we'll put all those links below. And is there anything else you want to tell us or share with us around self-worth or embodiment?
Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of like I was alluding to before. For so many of us as women, we have allowed, you know, culture to give us our worth, right? So it becomes in how we look, right? So for women, a lot of our value is in how we look and our ability to reproduce. So when you reach the point in life where you can no longer have kids and your body doesn't look the same as it did, like you've got gray hairs, your face is changing, your body's changing, right? So many of us have associated our worth with our bodies and with what we can do for other people, when it's completely not true. Our worth is all of our knowledge and our experience and our wisdom that we bring to the world, because as women, like we have so many gifts that the world needs right now, especially now, like moving into feminine leadership, we need all women to, you know, step into their power. And there's a Chinese, there's a thing in Chinese medicine, which I will share with you just to cap this off. In Chinese medicine, there is the energy of the body that flows through the body, right? And that's called the qi energy. And when you're leading up to menopause, your qi energy flows down through the body towards your reproductive organs. And it makes sense because it's all about birthing and nurturing and everything. And as soon as you hit menopause, the qi actually reverses and it comes up through the body and out through the eyes so that a woman can share her gifts with the world.
I've
Like
never heard that before.
Powerful is that?
Oh, I'm going to totally look that up now.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's so incredibly powerful. And then you realize it's not about how we look, it's about what we know,
Well,
right?
I feel like this should be said for any age of any
Any age
woman,
for sure.
because it's really a challenge. Like, I just think how tough it is for women in the early years too. Like we
For
talk about,
sure.
you know, the later years, but this is a challenge at any age for women when we're so busy looking for our worth externally
Yeah,
and not able to see our own value. So this is
for
why
sure.
I love these interviews. I love hearing these new things, and so does the audience, because it just gives them something to think about.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of this podcast is just to give someone a different way to look at themselves, their worth, their value, what's possible.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
possible? What if
Yeah.
it works?
Yeah, and that's not to say that, like, just like you said, like, these challenges are experienced by women at all ages. I think when we get to be, in our 40s and our 50s and, even beyond that, like we have the extra dimension of ageism on top of that, right?
Yeah.
Where we're kind of put out to pasture.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, we buy into that because we don't know any different. And so that is my
Until
mission.
you showed up.
That is my mission in life, is to show women exactly how powerful they are at this time of their lives.
I just love this so much. I love the work you're doing. I think you are amazing. And I want to say, like, just thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, because we just appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. We could go all day.
Listen, this is a thing. So I'm just going to say thanks again.
Well, that completes this week's episode. I hope you loved hearing from Jennifer as much as we enjoyed laughing and talking and sharing. Oh, great conversation. That's what the sister sessions are all about. So as I conclude this week's episode, I want to thank you for being here and sharing your beautiful energy with us. I also want to invite you to download your free copy. It's a beautiful little guidebook I've put together to really help you ground into your worth. We need this more than ever right now, and it is called Worth Secrets. So it's really about you embodying your human design and understanding your worth. So it's integrating these two elements to really bring you into wholeness, into fullness, and to see just how valuable, important, and worthy you already are. But it's going to show you some secrets or some tips on where most of us are getting tripped up, because 7/8 of the population, like 87% of women, are unsure of their worth and their value. And every day we're making compromises in our integrity, our physical integrity, our moral integrity. Like, there's just so much. So I've created a little guide just to help walk you through some of these ideas and concepts so that you can really ground into your power, so that you can really be in your feminine wisdom, and that you can feel really worthy to go and do the things you want to do without fear, without hesitation, and embodying what it would feel like to be in your beautiful goddess energy. So thank you for listening to today's episode, and we'll be back on Monday with the Weekly Freak.